We could call the meeting to order and have everybody rise to salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Larry.
Here.
Miss Martin.
Here.
Mr. McHugh.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
Miss Fattacante.
Here.
Mr. Leahy.
Present.
7 present.
Thank you. I do have a couple of introductions to make. First, we have Assistant Superintendent-elect Ann Murphy, who is joining us here. She will be taking Jean Franco's slot next year when Jean takes Ted Rorak's slot. So welcome, Ann. And we have a number of special guests with us tonight for our Spotlight on Excellence to honor the 2005-2006 retirees. We just concluded a reception for various folks that are going to be retiring after many years of service to the Lowell school system. We learned at the reception that collectively the 2005-2006 retirees have over 2,000 years of experience in the Lowell school system. There is a lot more wisdom in this room right now than there will be in a few minutes when they leave. So I do want to thank them for coming, thank them for their many years of service, and briefly announce the names of the folks that are with us this evening. I do want to point out that in addition to the retirees, we are pleased to welcome into the council chamber for the first time since he retired last December, former Mayor Richard Howe. Who I believe when he walked out of here last December said he may never step foot in this building again. Yet his sister Carol Collins was able to get him back down. Good to see you here, Mayor Howe. So I would just briefly like to read the names and thank and acknowledge the retirees with us tonight. Harriet Anagnostopoulos, Norma Audi, Robert Bayham, Sandra Baroyan, Eleanor Carter, Richard Coffey, Carol Collins, John Crows, David Cronin, Linda Davis, Eileen Earl, Virginia Eklund, Paul Gasimas, Gail Geekus, Anne Marie Lomer, Patricia McGuire, Trudy Michelle, William Mullen, Sandra Olajars, Mary Patrica, Donna Reed, Ted Rorak, James Scarth, Mary Silva, Dorothea Sullivan, and Daphne Zaralitis. Thank you once again. So you're certainly invited to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, but you're also invited, if you'd prefer, to return to the mayor's reception room for some additional refreshments. Thanks for your service, although we will require that Mr. Rorak stay with us. Okay, we have 3 sets of minutes on the agenda for acceptance from the regular school committee of May 17, 2006, from the budget hearing of May 22nd, 2006, and from the budget hearing of May 31st, 2006. Motion to approve.
Approve, Your Honor.
Ms. Fattacante.
Move approve. Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
The minutes are approved. Under permission to enter, do we have any items, Madam Superintendent?
Yes, two contracts that I'm recommending this evening. The first to the Greater Lawrence Educational Collaborative, $33,230, to amend the existing contract, provide for the out-of-district costs for 3 additional students. It's funding provided by the school department's special education tuition account. And West Ed Learning Innovations at West Ed, $125,400 to continue to provide staff development at our middle schools in mathematics. And that's funding provided by the fiscal year '07 Comprehensive School Reform Grant and the fiscal year '07 Technology Enhancement Grant.
What's the wish of the committee? Motion to
Move
approve by
approval,
Ms.
Your Honor.
Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Could we have several items under memorials. One offered by Ms. Martin for Mary Sheehan, the mother of Mary Sheehan, an executive secretary in student support services, and also a former long-term employee of the city clerk's office. And by Ms. Fattacante, Richard Minton, the father of Cindy Higgins, a clerk in the grants office, Dan Axman, the uncle of Donna Martell Whitney, a clerk in the special education department, Edward Corcoran, a retired custodian from the Rogers Middle School, William Bud Lavoie, father of Valerie Busby, a special education psychologist, Stella Ostis, mother of Joan Ostis, art teacher at the Pine Arts School, Doris Greenwood, mother of Pamela Fearley, custodian at the Pawtuckaville Memorial School, Charles Chucky Kelleher, the father of Jackie Kelleher, a clerk in the Title I office, David Clark, the husband of Teresa Clark, a special ed teacher at the Green Elch School. If we could please rise in a moment of silence. Thank you. May they rest in peace. There are no items on the agenda under unfinished business or public participation, which brings us to the motions. The first motion is by Ms. Fattacante, who moves that the administration at Lowell High School assure the school committee with proper documentation that the Lowell school system is not exceeding age requirements of students able to attend Lowell High School. Seconded by Mr. Leahy. Ms. Fattacante.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I need to explain to my colleagues, many of who I've talked to about this incident, what prompted me to put this on the agenda. An incident occurred at our high school several weeks ago. A group of students were clustered outside the library. They were asked to move by a custodian or some other personnel. They decided to move into the library. Upon entering the library, the librarian asked these students to sign in. And they said, "We don't have to sign in. We don't sign in." They then became very disruptive, very loud, and very argumentative with the librarian when she asked them to quiet down. The librarian then called for a security guard to come. The security guard came, and again, the students who were in the library refused to disperse. Security guard called for a school resource officer. School resource officer comes to the incident, and he says to one particular young woman in general, who seems to be the ringleader, that you need to disperse from the library. You either got to sign in and be quiet, or you got to disperse. And in fact, Your Honor, I felt like I had to do my own investigation because I felt like this was not investigated properly, I contacted several of the people involved in this incident who were witness to the incident, and learned that the security guard, the school resource officer, who was a police officer, probably asked this woman about 8 or 9 times to leave the library, at which point he then said, "If you don't leave the library, I'm going to have to arrest you." She said that she was not leaving the library, became very belligerent, and he arrested her. At which point in time, she put up a big tussle, and she was taken off and charged with various charges, one of them being assault and battery to a police officer. Second day occurs, and again, students in the library again, and administration says, "You know what, we need to go down and check this out, see what's going on." Administration comes down, and in fact, the school resource officers come to the scene also, and it is a small melee in the working. So when I discovered what had happened, I called the headmaster, and he indicated to me that there was an investigation that was going to be undertaken by the superintendent's office, because the young woman in question had now claimed it was a racial incident. And I said to the headmaster, "I've sat through expulsion hearings of youngsters at Lowell High School of every race and ethnic origin, born here in the city and not born here in the city. And I have yet to ever discover any disciplinary action that was racially or ethnically motivated, ever. In 20 years, ever. We've expelled and suspended all kinds of students." I then called the superintendent because I learned that the young woman in question was 21 years old. And I had a big problem with that. I had a big problem with it because my past history here on this committee tells me that nothing good can come of that. That when a student can drive themselves to school and pick up a 6-pack and a pack of cigarettes and sit next to a 15-year-old in the same class, that is a problem. So I asked the superintendent, when are we going to get to expel this young woman? She indicated to me that it was being investigated by the city solicitor's office because the young woman brought in her uncle and who was her sponsor, and it was going to become an international incident. And I said, I have no problem. I think that we followed policy. I think that everybody obeyed the rules except those students. And when was the school committee going to be able to address a disciplinary matter regarding those youngsters, regarding those adults? You can't call them youngsters. They're 19, 20, 21 years old. And I said to the superintendent on the phone, "I feel like you're stalling me." The superintendent said, "Regina, if I was stalling you, you'd know it." We had a little laugh. I let it go. Because she assured me that this committee who was duly elected by the people of this community, who are the policymakers for the Lowell Public Schools, would get to deal with this issue. And then I found out on Wednesday night that policy had been completely subverted when that adult woman of 21 years old, who was arrested on Lowell High property, walked across the stage and got a Lowell High School diploma. Everybody but the Lowell School Committee knew that. And I would have expected that my colleagues and I would have been the first people to have been made aware of that. I then realized that whatever policy we had about being disruptive at high school was absolutely and completely negated. And I am beyond angry, because I have never in 20 years had an incident like this occur when the school committee's policies were subverted. Now let me just remind people about why we make the policies. We have to have rules. And I think we can all agree on what some of the rules are. For instance, through you, Your Honor, when a youngster sets fire to the high school and tries to burn the building down and kill everybody inside it, I think he should be expelled. I think you lose your opportunity to continue to be a student at the high school. No ands, if, or buts. And I think that when you assault a police officer, you are egregious to other staff members, you are disrespectful, and you cause a melee, that you probably ought not to get to walk across the stage of graduation. I felt that every policy the school committee argues about and feels passionately about was subverted on that Wednesday evening in front of all of us. So I put this motion on the agenda for several reasons. One, I think it's incumbent upon my colleagues and I that we reinforce some of the policies that we have with our administration. And I also think that we need to do something with students who have exceeded certain age limits. For instance, when you're going to be a sophomore and you're 19 years old, when you're in the 8th grade and you're 16 and your school principal knows about it and the basketball coach knows about it and everybody is lying so that you can stay there. Your Honor, I cannot tolerate that. We are responsible to help young men and women become citizens of our community. And part of helping young men and women do that is to set some guidelines and some rules. And when the rules are subverted, there need to be consequences. We didn't even get to mete out justice because our policy was subverted. So I think I need a couple of things. One, I needed an investigation about what happened. Superintendent tells me it's a city solicitor's office. I have not spoken to the city solicitor's office yet, but I think that it should have come back to this committee for this committee to deal with the egregious behavior of that 21-year-old student and for us to make a determination of what should happen, not administration. Administrators carry out the policies that duly elected members of the school committee create, not other people in the committee that have our ear. The 7 of us that sit in this room. And you know what? I don't agree with these people all the time, Your Honor, but I do respect them because they feel as strongly and as passionately about what we do as I do, and I know that. So I need to bring this to the committee's attention because I think as a group, we need to hash through this. And we need to figure out, A, what we're going to do about kids who are 21 years old or 19 and sophomores. And B, we need to maybe create a policy that says, if you get arrested on school property, maybe you can't come back. If you set a fire to the school, I consider that pretty serious and maybe you can't come back, regardless of what the administration feels about those policies. And I through you, Your Honor, I look to my colleagues to get some kind of clarity about what we're going to do next, about how we're going to handle this. And the other thing that's come to my attention is that, I just made this statement about how members of the committee feel very passionately and very strongly about things that are important to us. And at no time do I want to hear that the administration is in contravention to those policies, and that the administration lambastes us because we feel passionately about the policies, and that the administration thinks that we are wrong because we sit here and we make policies that are not good for children. We have kids' best interest at heart because we wouldn't be here if we didn't. And nor do I want to hear that we do not know what we're doing. There might be a little learning curve in January, but we know what we're doing. And I have a lot of faith in my colleagues. So through you, Your Honor, to my colleagues, what's the next step here? Maybe people do not feel as passionately about this as I do, but I don't think, one, it's a good idea to have kids who are that age with younger people. 2, I think I need a report about how this happened. Whose fault is it that the school committee policy got subverted? And 3, why was the school committee not informed that that young woman was graduating and that there would be no justice? Because here's what happens, Your Honor. You get a group of kids who see something bad happen, and kids, very, very, very quick, they know who gets in trouble, they know who doesn't. And if you don't get in trouble for something, oh, the door is open for me to do the same thing. I don't want to open any doors. I want to make sure they're shut at all times, because we have a 4,000-person high school, and kudos to the people who work there for keeping the place running smoothly. Kudos to the administration, the staff, and the young people who follow the rules. And they need to know there are consequences when you don't. So I look to my colleagues because I think we need, as a group, we need to figure out what we're going to do and what our next step is. Thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much. Hearing the description from my colleague, as I'm listening to this situation, I'm seeing 2 separate issues that I think we can deal with separately. I share the concern that an individual who had a clearly very severe infraction on school property, that their behavior rose to the level where actual police intervention was necessary, I think is certainly fairly dramatic. I think that the idea of perhaps even referring this to the discipline subcommittee to come up with a policy, and again, I don't like to make policies in the face of specific situations, but I do think the idea of when something that serious happens, that we need to have in place something that automatically removes that student from all school activities until whatever investigation or whatever, whether it's a police-driven investigation or a school department investigation, is concluded. I think that, again, whether we're talking graduation, whether we're talking a school dance, whether we're talking a school trip, these are all things that should automatically come into question for students who have had that level of an infraction at the high school. So that's the one part of it. I do have concerns about linking this too tightly to the age issue. As we all know, and we're all, I know, well aware that there are requirements placed on us as a district that require us to provide education. The number that has been chosen by the state of Massachusetts is the age of 22 for students who fall within special education and have those specific types of needs. And I do think, and I think it's a legitimate concern, that to say that we're going to give that opportunity to special needs students when we aren't willing to give it to students who may be struggling with other issues, I think would place us in a dangerous legal area. I think, and for myself, I can say it's more important to me that for the 19-year-old sophomore who arrived in this country maybe 2 years ago, I don't want us to be placed in a situation where our policy requires us to remove them from the high school, a student who is progressing, who is kind of with the program, I guess, and shows every sign of being able to graduate with a Lowell High School diploma. So for me, I'd certainly willing to have some conversations, perhaps again maybe at the high school subcommittee or even within discipline, whichever my colleagues choose, to talk about the age issue. But I do have to say that I think we need to be concerned about that requirement, and I think that the expulsion issue needs to be. I think it's, if nothing else, this situation has made very clear to us that we need to be more clear in the way we report out to to the administration, to all of our leaders within the school district, exactly what our expectations are for responses to these types of situations. And I think this is a situation where I believe the discipline subcommittee could really take some time and craft an effective and fair policy that could then be implemented across the district.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Yes, I'd like. I was also aware of that 22-year state mandate for special ed students. I wouldn't want to open us up to litigation with that. But in terms of the consequences, I think it is something as a district we need to really look at more closely. That, I mean, I've heard it on the middle school level more than at the high school, that depending on what school you're at, the consequences can vary quite a bit for different infractions, that many of which I would consider to be quite serious. So I think looking at the policy, and even as we do that, I have some hesitancy, because I think whenever you're talking about people, there are other factors that often come into play, and I wouldn't want to lock principals into you absolutely have to do this if there are extenuating circumstances. But it seems to me that we do have a certain inconsistency across the district in regards to consequences and discipline, and I think that taking a closer look at that would be helpful to kind of have a consistency and a very clear, well understood policy across the district. So I would be in favor of putting this onto, I think the discipline subcommittee seems like an excellent place to really look more closely at this. And later on in the meeting, we have a report that talks about safe and respectful climates that I think is moving in that same direction. So I think that that would be a good way to start with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
Thank you. I got a quick question, Mayor, through you to the superintendent. Are there statute requirements for age in the middle schools? For example, at a certain age you can no longer are allowed to be in the middle school, 17 years old, for example. I'm just trying to, for my own edification.
I don't believe we have a policy that speaks to that.
Not a policy, but like a statute, state statute.
No, I don't believe there's a statute.
Okay. I think I agree with my colleague regarding reviewing this. I think the discipline subcommittee would be a good place to start. I'm not in favor of having 21-year-olds in the classroom either. I mean, if you can buy alcohol and cigarettes, it's kind of a strong red flag to me for us to look at. I'm cognizant of the fact that special ed has statute requirements up to age 22. It's something that a subcommittee could dive into meticulously and come out with some, hopefully some positive viewpoints and maybe a policy if it's warranted. Again, I agree with my colleague, age 21, in the high school when you were there 14 and 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, wouldn't want my child sitting in that position. So I think it's something we definitely have to look at. I'm sensitive to other colleagues' thoughts and comments, so it's, I think, a good dialogue, looking at specifics, what other jurisdictions, other school districts are doing within the state and other areas is a good thing to look at. Further dialogue would be, I think, positive. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. The only thing I wanted to add to this that hasn't been said, well, that has been said, but I want to emphasize is that I think most of I think the policy across the board needs to be fair, and it needs to be done in a timely manner. And as much information that we're allowed to have, I think we should have it on any and all incidences that happen in our schools, elementary, middle, or at the high school. And that would be a big help for us because we're the ones that hear from the public, from our neighbors, and they want to know why this happened and why that happened, what were the consequences. So that would help us out greatly in that respect. And I agree with most of the comments made here tonight that we do need to refer this to the subcommittee for the full motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. McHugh?
Thank you. This is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's something I'm also on this subcommittee, and I welcome this as an opportunity because this just brings to light a couple things. One, I think we did receive some information in an FYI, so at least we got some information. But I'm not so sure we got the complete story, and I think I'd like to make sure we are getting all the facts that are relevant and everything we need to know. I think this is also, as Ms. Faticani stated, that it's kind of opened up our eyes to revisit all the policies. I mean, I've heard tonight a mention about the middle school, and I couldn't agree more. Having a middle school child, right now, you could be 18, 19 years old, 20 years old in middle school, and we can't do anything about it because there's nothing that stops us because they're under the age. So I've heard about things in the past about students being too old to be the grade appropriate, and it's not that I want to deny any child, especially a child that's a good child, their education, and we should be doing that. but it has to be in an age-appropriated setting. When we have problems with discipline, and it just becomes more to light when you see a 21 or a 22-year-old involved in a discipline issue, and you start to say, okay, now what do we got to do? Now we're trying to be reactive to a problem that's happened, and obviously now the person has walked across the stage and gone, and it's out of our hands. So I think as part of this will probably be some policy changes that we can then control and then make recommendations back to the full committee or to the policy subcommittee so we can update our policy so that we can look at this from that standpoint, because I have to tell you, I don't want to see any child, never mind an adult getting hurt, that's bad enough, but to have another child that's 21, 22 beating up a 15-year-old, that's not right, and that could happen. And then what rights does that 15-year-old have, or the parents have of that? And we could be sitting looking from a different circumstance. So I don't like to see these issues. I don't want to see anyone ever get hurt, whether it's an adult or a child. And I think we need to address this very quickly and get something in place for September, so that in September we can then have policies that are very clear. And honestly, if they're not followed, I think then we have to take people to task. I really have to say that. We can't be sitting here and getting dribs and drabs of information. And I've been to expulsions, and then you know what? We've expelled a lot of children, and I have to tell you, we have that long, hard discussion about what they really did, because we don't want to put any child just out in the street, because that doesn't really help the ultimate goal of that child. But at some point, that decision has to be made, and we've made that. And I know we sat a number of nights up in the other building having those long, hard discussions on both sides of the issue, so it's not taken lightly. But in a case like this, showing defiance, not once, but twice, I have a major problem with that. And I would agree with my colleague that child, even as a discipline problem, if they met the requirements of graduation, I would have not allowed that child to attend the graduation ceremony, never mind walk across the stage, say, we'll mail you a diploma or come back and pick it up at a later date. I applaud them for getting a diploma, but you know what? This is uncalled for, and that's just like bullying. And we could have used the bullying policy as a way to address this as well. So I'm sure if we went through all our policy, we could probably find a number of policies that weren't filed or followed properly, never mind. So I think this is a timely issue, and I look forward to taking this to the subcommittee and bringing recommendations back to this full committee and probably policy recommended changes as well. Thank you.
Ms. Fattacante?
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate my colleague's input. I hear it. I respect it. I think we can all agree that the issue does not concern youngsters who are in special ed or adults who are in special ed. It's not the committee's decision or will to subvert anybody's education plan, but we're talking about regular ed students, whether they be in the bilingual program or regular ed program, who have reached a certain age and are in public school. In my conversation with the superintendent, she did inform me that there are school districts who have very similar problems. They are very similar to communities like Lowell. They have special programs for kids who are sort of aged out. So when you're 16 and in the 7th grade, they have special educational programs where you can still graduate from the 8th grade and still go on to high school, but you're not a 60, you can't drive yourself to the 7th grade. Because again, that's the problem. And I make a joke about it because I think we probably need a little brevity in the room, but that's a reality. When you can drive yourself to your 8th grade cotillion, that's a problem. When you can buy beer and cigarettes on the way to school in the morning, that's a problem. So I think we need, as Ms. Martin said, we have two issues here. One, I really think we need to get to the bottom of what happened, and then we need to go to a subcommittee to have a look at the policies and restructure the policies. And I don't know how we convey to our administrators that they need to be followed. I don't know how that happens. And maybe that's part of the discussion. And I'm wondering if we could get a dual committee of the discipline subcommittee and the safety subcommittee, because that, Your Honor, just about encompasses everybody. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Who would those two committees be?
of the safety.
Along with yourself
so-
and Ms. Doherty.
Exactly, and then
Okay.
discipline is chaired by Mr. McHugh, you're also a member.
Okay.
And Mr. Leahy, so Mr. Leary will
So
be the only one with
so,
the free
but you know
evening.
what? We would love to have Mr. I think it encompasses just about all the school committee. And I think when I hear my colleagues speaking tonight, I think that it's an issue that we need to address as a group. We need to say to staff, your safety is important. We need to say to kids, your safety is important. And we need to say to the general public that we will have policies and procedures in place for when children are trying to burn the building down or when they are trying to attack staff members, and that we will not tolerate that behavior. And that somehow we're going to get administration to carry out the policies and procedures of the school committee of the city of Lowell. So, two things. I think we need a report about what happened. If it was the city solicitor's office that said, take no action, then I think we need to know that. If it was the superintendent's office that said, take no action, then, Your Honor, I think this committee needs to know that. So if we want to incorporate all that into the motion, if the person who has seconded the motion has agreed to that, Mr. Leahy? Thank you. So I think that's what we're looking for, Your Honor. I appreciate my colleagues, their input and their comments. Thank you.
Okay, a motion to refer this matter to a joint meeting of the Safety and Discipline Subcommittees by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Mr. Leahy, and also request a report about the facts from the administration. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Next motion on the agenda is by Ms. Doherty. Request the superintendent report to the Lowell High School Subcommittee on how to improve lunches at the Freshman Academy for the next academic year, seconded by Mr. Leary. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just briefly, I think the motion speaks for itself. We've been getting numerous complaints about the lunch program at the Freshman Academy, and I just want to kind of push the administration to make some sort of plan, get something in place for the fall, and that's what this intention of this motion is. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Next motion is by Ms. Doherty. Request the superintendent provide a report to the Lowell High School Subcommittee on the status of existing academies, including the number of students and teachers in those academies, how those numbers changed over the last few years. In addition, as part of the report, information on the Communications Academy should include the number of staff who are videotaping school events and hours involved in these tasks, type and quality of equipment available for student and staff use, and a list of the programs and events completed for broadcast in the last quarter of the 2005-2006 school year. Second by
I'll second.
Ms. Faticante. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've been in subcommittee with the Lowell High School. We've been talking about expanding the whole academy program. And I just thought it behooves us to take a look at what we've been doing with the academies, first off, before we make it something mandatory for all juniors to choose an academy. And this is a way for us to just get more information about what's happening at the academies. I've separated out the Communications Academy because of that extra piece that they do in terms of broadcasting shows and taping programs throughout the city for us. It seemed fair that we get more information about that piece of the academy because it does impact what the students do. So it's really just information so that when we go forward with this plan, if we do go forward with this, a plan about expanding the academies, we have more information before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary? Okay. Anyone further? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Next motion by Mr. Leary. Request the superintendent provide the number of IEPs completed in the 2004-2005 school year and a list of IEPs that were not filed within the statutory required time frame. Seconded by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I want to change some of my own motion. Really, I'm looking for is 0506 instead of 0405. And I'm also looking for not completed within the statutory required time frame. The genesis of my motion is essentially we've just added approximately $500,000 worth of special education personnel because we're not in compliance. So what I want to do going forward is have a benchmark tracing how effective we are with adding that amount of money to our budget. If we're adding significant sums of money, I want to make sure we're successful. So this is essentially a benchmark. How many IEPs are not meeting the 45-day time frame? Once we understand what the number is, then we need to make sure we're doing better. So it's a simple benchmarking, going forward type review. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion, you want to speak, Ms. Doherty?
I was just going to ask if we could amend that to have the report provided to the Special Ed Subcommittee, if my colleague's okay with that. We could take a look at it first and then report back. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is adopted. Under subcommittee reports, first is from Finance, report and approval of the minutes of the May 22nd, 2006 Finance Subcommittee. Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. Just briefly, the Finance Subcommittee met on Monday, May 22nd, just to briefly get an update and find out what the amount that we would be accepting and working with the city on chargebacks towards some expenditures. Mr. Lang informed the subcommittee that he'd been working with Assistant City Manager T.J. McCarthy and the Chief Financial Officer James Kennedy and the DPW Deputy Commissioner David Blazon to provide documentation for the City of Lowell's actual expenditures for maintenance of school buildings for 2005. After a number of meetings and reviewing documentation back and forth, they both agreed on an expenditure that would be acceptable of $1,164,187, and that's what we will be applying towards the maintenance of school buildings for the FY 2005. So there was a motion by Mr. Leahy and seconded by Mr. Leary to accept the amount of $1,164,187 as the City of Lowell expenditure on the maintenance of school buildings for 2005, and that passed 3-0. So I bring that forward as a motion to the committee as a whole.
Okay. Motion to adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Mr. Leary. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes?
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, the next subcommittee report is on the
Honor?
subcommittee on... I'm sorry.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
on that? It's sort of related. I just wanted to mention that since we're talking about maintenance of effort, I had a chance today to go by the Laura Lee School, and the city workers, Dave Blazon and his crew, they're doing a great job. I just wasn't sure if the committee was aware that they're redoing the exterior of the building, all new windows, paint job, and it's really looking great. They trimmed up the trees, took down a couple that in front, and that's all tied in with the maintenance of effort, and we appreciate the work that they're doing out there. The school looks great, so if you have a chance, you should go by and take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. The next subcommittee report is the Subcommittee on Curriculum, a report on approval of the minutes of the May 23rd, 2006 meeting by Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. Would that I could be as succinct as my colleague. Our meeting did take place on May 23rd at 8:30 a.m. Present were myself, other members of the subcommittee, Jackie Doherty and Jim Leary. From central office, we had Dr. Bear and Ted Rorak, our deputy superintendent, and also attending were Dr. Donald Pearson, from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell Graduate School of Education, Grace Way, who is our principal, just completing her first year at the Bartlett Community Partnership School, and Claire Abrams, who is the coordinator of our K-12 mathematics initiatives for the district. There were a number of different items discussed at this meeting. I'm going to try and get through them fairly quickly, but I would encourage my colleagues who feel the need to add anything on, please feel free. The first topic of discussion was the Bartlett Community Partnership School. We had requested an update on the status of the school. This, as many will remember, was a situation where we were combining two schools. The City Magnet and the Demonstration School were two separate institutions that were merged to form this Bartlett Community Partnership School. This was we're concluding the first year of operation, and it certainly posed some challenges, bringing together all new staff, many of whom were, I believe we were looking at 50% were new to our district even. So it was really a great deal of change that was kind of focused on one fairly small school. I think that as we spoke with Dr. Pearson from the university, he was extremely clear in reiterating his commitment in the future to the university remaining a very clear and palpable partner with our program at the Bartlett, which I think still remains an extraordinary opportunity for our teachers and most importantly our students there. I think that some of the challenges have been met and we have made some accommodations for scheduling issues that arose during this first year. I do have to say that as having been involved in the process, and it was certainly a very long and involved one, of combining these schools, one of the key things that I am particularly disappointed by is that our extended day opportunity for students at the Bartlett will be going away in the next school year. Really has already been phased out at the conclusion of this school year. I think that it is extremely disappointing, and I think that it is an instance wherein our district has really failed to live up to the expectations that our students have placed on us, and I, for one, am very disappointed by that. However, we do move forward, and we do still see great opportunities for this school, and the partnership between the university and the administration and all the teachers at the Bartlett, I think, is being strengthened and really will have very real benefits for all of our students enrolled there. For this report, I would probably say we can take it all at the end in one vote. So that was accepted as a report of progress. The second topic on this agenda was...
Can I jump in?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, thank you. Could I, through you, Your Honor, to Ms. Martin, could you just, I wasn't able to attend the meeting. Could you just elaborate on the after-school programs? It says after-school programs will not continue.
You realize during your next subcommittee report, I'm going to have a follow-up question for you.
Sure. Thank
so
you.
Just be ready. The after-school program had initially been part of one of the founding tenets of the school, was that we were going to have extended time. It was built into the structure of the school to the point where we had teachers working staggered schedules to accommodate it, to ensure that learning was happening from beginning to end. It was really it was a critical component of the building process that the committee had gone through a year and a half, 2 years ago. Theoretically, I think it was an exceptionally good idea, and I think the problem is that in reality we did run into some friction in terms of being able to maintain collegiality among our staff, that the separation of the school day proved problematic. Even things as simple as scheduling all staff meetings were virtually impossible just by reason of people were there at different times, and coming in early or staying late meant different things to different people. And I think that the decision was made by the administration of the school and the administration at Central, and during this conversation with the subcommittee, that really necessity dictated that we focus on our traditional work, our traditional school day, making it as effective as possible, and recognizing that our extended day opportunity here would have to be something we develop in the future.
Did we lose the theory of the extended day then? The program, is that gone then?
It is gone now. It was about a month ago. It was phased out so that students who didn't want to participate were no longer required to participate. The school day officially ended at a traditional time, and that other students who wanted to participate, it was still optional. We will have some of those opportunities, but not in the comprehensive way that initially had been planned.
So basically the move from the old location of the demonstration school to the new location and combining it with the Bartlett, we've lost what we had at the demonstration school?
My understanding
Am I
was that the
understanding that?
demonstration school
No?
had a
Okay.
traditional school day before they came to the Bartlett. The extended day is something that happened at the Bartlett during the building process. So it wasn't anything that had been previously in place at either one of the schools.
But the partnership with the University of Lowell is still going strong in the...
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they retain their very real and tangible commitment
All right,
to
that's what I wanted to make sure
supporting
we
the
didn't
school.
lose. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Moving on.
You may continue.
Looking at the Robinson School, we also discussed the phase-out of our foreign language plan. We have discussed this before during one of our public meetings, so just to quickly say, we are going to be phasing out the Spanish language program at the Robinson. We are going to be providing our 6th and 7th grade students with an option based on the consent of parents and guardians if they wish to continue with the program, just so we don't leave any students kind of out in the lurch who had committed early on and expressed an interest and a talent for foreign language study. One of the key things that this does do for us is that it is going to take us from 60-minute core blocks of study to being able to have a 90-minute block schedule, increasing both mathematics and English by 30 minutes each day. That will have a dramatic impact, and I think it's something that we're, again, as we weigh the benefits of the choices we make, I think certainly this committee as a whole had recognized that time spent on those very specific areas of mathematics and English language arts were time that we needed to spend. So that also passed through the subcommittee. The subcommittee had also taken up an algebra seminar report of progress, I believe, which was based on an initial motion by Ms. Doherty. Certainly we've talked a great deal about our mathematics initiatives. We did talk about the Summer Math Academy, and that really, and this is a district-wide decision, we are pushing harder with our students. We're going to be introducing more advanced concepts in the Summer Math Academy. We're also going to be giving high-achieving students at the 7th and 8th grade level more exposure to algebraic concepts and pre-algebra. So as we're looking at, again, kind of the block times and the significant increase in the amount of time being spent on mathematics, we will be looking district-wide at an increase to 90 minutes a day spent on math throughout our district, which I think is exciting, and I think will certainly support improved performance for our students across the board. We did discuss the use of the sheltered instruction model, which is in place, and I think that it will be used in the as part of our mathematics, so that we will be doing interventions with students who are struggling with specific topics and specific content. And again, part of that 30 minutes a day will be spent offering opportunities for flexible grouping so that students can have the benefit of working together. So the subcommittee had accepted that report of progress. We then had two research proposals that were presented. One is a research project, the next generation of teachers. And I must confess, I could not say this individual's name on a bet. Seshel, okay. Just say it fast and hope no one notices, okay. This is a study which will be focusing on second stage teachers, those generally between 4 and 8 years on the job, how they describe and assess their professional autonomy, and what role, if any, does school context play in these teachers' descriptions and assessments. The subcommittee did recommend moving forward with this research proposal. It did fall in line with all of the standard caveats that our committee has placed on potential researchers in terms of publication limitations and the ability to make sure that the material is shared with us once it is completed. Final request was for a dissertation being done by entitled Technology Standards for School Administrators by our own Administrator for Technology, Sue Burrill. Again, this will be something that will be, is not anticipated to be published, but again, has fallen in to the same criteria for acceptance that previous research studies have complied with. I would recommend that this entire report be accepted as a report of progress, and again, would welcome any input from my colleagues.
Mr. Leary.
Quickly, just Mayor, through you to the superintendent, regarding the Robinson School, I know with the Spanish as a second language, what's the status of the children that are in the program that have elected to take the program next year? Do we have numbers on that yet?
I don't have that information yet. All the families have been informed of the option to continue, and they're collecting that information and working on what that would mean. As soon as we have that information, we'll get it to you.
Do you get a guesstimate time for when that will occur?
Certainly by the end of the school year.
Okay, great, thank you. Just real quickly, regarding the lengthy report from the chairman, it was a very good meeting. The Bartlett School, a lot of information I didn't know. I didn't realize, I did realize we had a principal and a vice principal that were brand new to the school. I think the number of percentage of teachers that were new to the school was like 80%. Is that the correct number? It was a huge number of new teachers, not to teaching, but teaching in that building. So I don't know what the number was. It was like,
I think it was close to 50% were new to the district.
to the district.
Everyone was new to the building because
Correct.
it was a merger of two schools, other schools.
Great. I think the presentation from the principal really explained that there were significant hurdles coming in at the beginning of the year. We are hoping with the continued involvement of the UMass Lowell that there will not be hurdles next year. It'll be just success. So it's something that we definitely have to keep a close eye on. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Leahy.
Just very quickly, through you to Superintendent, I just wanted to say one more comment on the Bartlett. Just some of the feedback that I've gotten from parents is that obviously it's a new setting, combination of schools, new administration, everything. I would just hope that are we having enough intervention between staff and parents at the school, just to make sure that, the parents are new, some of the parents are new, a lot of parents have been in that program for a long time, some of the staff is new, and just to make sure that everybody's comfortable because it's a different program, they want to all be there. I would just hope that we're having a lot of communication between the school and the parents, just to make sure, because there's going to be some bugs to be worked out. And I've heard from a few parents, and I assure them that any concerns that they bring up, that they need to bring up and they have to bring up, will be met. So, thank you.
Okay. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and adopt the recommendations of the subcommittee by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. The next subcommittee report is a report of the Personnel Subcommittee. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, and this is actually just the printed minutes of a subcommittee meeting that I had reported on at our last meeting. So it's really for the benefit of the committee that they have the minutes from that meeting. Just regarding updating our the way we're reporting central administration salaries in the budget. So we had already discussed that, and the report had already been accepted as a verbal report, and this is the written backup.
Okay. Motion to accept the report by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leahy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Doherty,
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante,
Yes.
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, the next report is a report of the Special Education Subcommittee from the meeting of May 25th. Ms. Doherty.
Yes, Your Honor. I actually reported on this meeting during our budget hearings because it did impact the budget quite a bit. We made some trade-offs at the high school in special education. We hired some new special education, we put in the budget to hire some new people. So I don't know if I need to report again or...
I think what's sufficient, unless
Okay.
there are questions, I think we can
okay, so...
adopt the report. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress and adopt the report by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Fattacante. Because it impacts the budget, I think we should have a roll call on this.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, the next subcommittee report is on the joint school building program, a report of the meeting of June 5th by Mr. McHugh, Chairman, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. The building subcommittee is made up jointly of the city council and the school committee. Is on the city side. City council side's chairman is Eileen Donahue, member Bud Caulfield, and Rodney Elliott. And from the school side, it's myself chairing it, along with members John Leahy and Connie Martin. That night we met to discuss the current status. Actually, Eileen Donahue called the meeting just to get an update where we are on the 2 new building projects. And at this point, Mr. Lang ran the meeting and discussed where we were. And we first reviewed the existing cost, and we continue to talk about the longer this project waits to go out to bid, the more costs we're going to probably incur and possibly drive the project cost up, which was discussed at length at the meeting. And I think that was a good thing, because I thought it also brought out some other points that we'll get to briefly. So the next part of it, we turned over to where we are in the process, and we're currently in the process of hiring a firm to be the project manager who will oversee the buildings of both the buildings at the same time or separately, or ever how we move forward on those 2 projects. This would be an independent person, so he has no ties to the architect and no ties to the builder. So I think this is definitely needed. It would be an independent set of eyes and ears that have strong background in buildings and HVAC and structural issues and everything else that would bring all that to the table to be kind of like, as they would, to our eyes and ears of the project. So we're in the process. I guess we're very close to getting a firm on board. Once that firm is brought on board, it's the recommendation that that person that gets hired come back and meet with this joint subcommittee to discuss these 2 projects, introduce themselves, and start listening to what the concerns are of this committee and what we need to do to move forward. The very first step after that, we've already determined, is to have them do an independent cost study to see that the architectural construction costs are valid. And I think that's a very good first step to take, because that'll either show that, yes, it's nice to have someone say, yes, these numbers are good, or, geez, I don't really think so. And there was a lot of discussion of the new garage that was talked about on the council side about a month or so ago, and how the project costs are continuing to escalate. And we just want to make sure that the budgetary numbers that we were presented with are still accurate. So I think an independent set of eyes that would run that cost estimate would be a very prudent thing to do before we go down the path too far and put it out on the street to bid. So that would be expected to be completed sometime in the late fall, and then at that point we reconvene to talk about the project again one more time to stay in the loop, and then it would be going out to bid hopefully at that point, and construction hopefully starting sometime after the award, which would probably be sometime after the first of the year, which means they'd probably break ground in early April. Would be just a time schedule that's tentative, and I would only use that because we're not quite there, and I think it's the goal just to take this one step at a time. Let's just keep that as in mind, but we need to keep making sure we have these checkpoints along the way to ensure that we're doing it in a fiscal responsible way for the city side, and that we're only bonding what we need to bond for the project. So it was really going to be a report of progress for tonight, because the first step is to get the project engineering firm on, the project manager on board, then have the next meeting, which we anticipate should be sometime in July. And then after that, I'll be back to the committee with a report of where we stand. And I would imagine the next step would be coming back with where we are with the cost estimates to see that they're valid before we go out to bid. So I put that as a report of progress for tonight.
Thank you. If I could ask either the superintendent or Mr. Lang, do we know how far along we are in bringing the consultant on board? Are we, how far away are we from that, if you have a sense?
I could ask Mr. Lang to comment. I know he's had conversations with the city manager today.
Yeah, we're very close. We did the interviews of the various forums that submitted proposals. We have it narrowed down to a group that we would like to negotiate with for the project. At this point, we've submitted their name and their qualifications to the new school building authority, and they have to actually approve that particular company before we go into negotiations with them for a potential contract. So I would hope to hear back from them by Friday or Monday at the latest, and then be able to, probably by midweek, if they do give the okay, conclude negotiations with the owner's project manager firm and have a recommendation to the city manager by midweek.
Okay. Thank you. I think if I could just speak from here on this matter, Mr. McHugh pointed out the first step is to have this independent consultant take a look at the costs and see if the architect's estimates are valid or will hold, and from there, see if there are changes that we can implement to the program. In our experience with the last school and the last couple municipal projects, after you go out to bid and then try to achieve savings, at that point, it's really, you get pennies on the dollar, I think is the phrase Mr. Lang used, from the contractor. So the notion would be to take a cost study analysis before we go out to bid, see if there are programmatic changes that can reduce the scope without impacting the program aspects in the school, and do that before the project goes out to bid. That hopefully would lead to some cost savings. So that's, I think everybody is in agreement with that approach, and that's the path we're headed down, and it's good to hear that this consultant should be on board, hopefully within a week. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to ask you one question, too. Has anybody ever challenged the fact that they give you the money to build the schools, give you the design, and by the time you get to the project, it's 3, 4, 5 years later? So it wouldn't hurt to ask, would they increase it? Maybe they don't, but maybe nobody's asked, so.
I can tell you the Mass Mayors Association is very heavily lobbying the Treasurer's Office to revise that position. This impacts every city, certainly, in the state, as well as virtually every town as well. So, I know the Mayor's Association is pushing hard on this. I know the Mass Municipal Association is pushing hard on this. I see the superintendent nodding, so I assume the Superintendent's Association is pushing hard on this. We haven't gotten anywhere yet, but it is a notion that is at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adopt the report of the subcommittee as a report of progress by Mr. McHugh, seconded by Ms. Faticante. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. The next subcommittee report is by the curriculum subcommittee for the meeting of June 9th. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. This meeting was scheduled and took place on June 9th at 8:30 a.m. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but in attendance were members Jackie Doherty and Jim Leary, and also John Leahy. We had present from the central office Dr. Bear, Ted Rurak, our deputy superintendent, Jean Franco, assistant superintendent, Jay Lang, assistant superintendent, and also we had Dr. Wendy Jack, the director of curriculum at our high school, Pam Buchek, reading ELA coordinator, Claire Abrams, mathematics coordinator, and Joyce Tapper-Benham, our professional development coordinator. A number of topics once again discussed at this meeting. One was the mathematics initiatives, which perhaps anyone who's been watching this for more than 10 minutes remembers my previous report. Basically, we're talking about, again, the increase to 90 minutes per day for mathematics instruction, and really moving towards more advanced algebra and pre-algebra seminars for our middle school students who are performing at higher levels. There was a motion at the subcommittee to accept this as a report of progress, and also to request that the curriculum subcommittee receive an additional report prior to the beginning of the next academic year regarding how this increase in math time and the, again, the raising of standards for mathematics across the districts, how those are going to be implemented, both in terms of math and literacy at each school, identifying teachers, the levels of intervention, and teacher qualifications for delivering instruction. So that will all be, the request was made that the administration provide that to the subcommittee. I would recommend probably an August meeting is...
Early if possible.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I'd like to just add to that. It came to our attention that this whole intervention piece, because you're going to have the 60 minutes of the whole class working on whether it's the core mathematics program or core literacy, and then you're going to break the children up into these groups, these flexible groups, depending on what level they're at, if they're ready to go to pre-algebra or if they need to focus on basic skills. It came to our attention that this was really a staffing and scheduling challenge for the middle schools. And we were concerned that we didn't have one particular group at whatever point, at whatever level they were at, being in, let's say, a homework period, that there wasn't somebody qualified to really provide the challenging curriculum that those students needed, whatever level they were at. And that was really the thinking behind asking the administration to provide us with a more detailed report about how this was actually going to be implemented at every middle school. You know, what staff they were going to pull to provide this level of very focused math instruction where you're breaking the kids into these, 3 different groups basically for this 30 minutes of skill level work. So I mean, I was hoping, I think they were talking about August. I'd like to see the report as early as possible because they are going to plan to implement this in the fall. So, but that was really, I just wanted to clarify the thinking behind asking for this, because now not only are we doing it with math, but we're going to be doing it with literacy and for all grades. We're moving from just a 7th and 8th grade model to including the 5th and 6th graders. And, some of the feedback that I had heard was, with the 7th and 8th grade, sure, the pre-algebra kids and the algebra kids were getting that kind of focused instruction, but some of the other levels weren't getting the same quality, and that's what we want to make sure that, we are meeting each student at their level and challenging them to go further. That's really what we're trying to do here. So I think this report will be very important for us to have a chance to look at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Martin?
Also discussed was the choice, as many, I'm sure people watching are aware, that all districts across the state of Massachusetts are moving into required science component of the MCAS, based on conversations certainly at the subcommittee, but also that have been had by our school leadership with other districts. The recommendation was made to the subcommittee to choose biology as what will be our high-stakes MCAS test for the city of Lowell. Looking at 2010, the class of 2010 will be the first class that will be required to show their competency within this area. It is something that appears to be the direction most districts are moving towards in choosing biology as the science of choice. So that recommendation was made to the subcommittee, and the subcommittee is recommending that to the full committee. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that. We discussed the Freshman Academy Reading Program, which I know we have discussed both during budget hearings and in prior meetings. Having made the commitment to move forward with our Read 180 enterprise program for the Freshman Academy. It was again accepted by the subcommittee as a report of progress. Terra Nova testing, again a topic we've been discussing. Basically, the administration has recommended that we eliminate Terra Nova from from the list of many tests that we administer to our students over the course of a year. The recommendation really being based on the fact that we do have other testing instruments that provide similar data for us, and in some cases more specific to our needs within our own district. I know in previous conversations I've mentioned that my biggest concern was that we maintain a nationally normed instrument as at least one of the testing models that we use, and we will be able to do that using the SRI assessments that are implemented, and then also having the Galileo assessments, which would be testing the math performance. So the subcommittee did recommend that we move forward to eliminate Terra Nova testing, and would recommend that to the full committee. The professional development report basically was reported out in terms of discussing what the specific roles are of specific job titles within our district: literacy specialists, math resource teachers, ESL lead teachers, how all of those individuals within the district work towards professional development and the role they play in that. The subcommittee had requested specific information about how we are seeing the results of professional development, what the impact of the investment is that we make in our staff, and there was a request, I believe, from Ms. Doherty for additional evidence. I don't know if you'd like to speak to that, or...
Well, basically, the information they provided was they're looking at student learning and the evidence in the classroom practices, that because we're doing so much work with teachers, we're seeing them actually use the professional development in the classrooms, and that we would see it in the test scores of the kids, too. So that was...
Okay, and that was recommended again by the subcommittee to be recommended to the full committee. Final topic was the draft of a wellness policy to be implemented. Mr. Lang had brought this forward, basically recommendations for changes to our nutrition policy and guidelines, focused on the food and beverages sold to students in Lowell Public Schools, the recommendations for nutritional guidelines for school and classroom celebrations, and the threat, I guess, that this is just the first phase of implementation, and that there will be additional changes over the course of the next few years. The recommendation by Ms. Doherty was that the curriculum subcommittee maintain oversight of this effort, which will certainly be long-term and ongoing, and the subcommittee would recommend that to the full committee. That would be the conclusion of what was, as I understand it, a 4-hour meeting. So that was a pretty quick report, really, if you want to get right down to it. And I would put that, recommend the full school committee accept it as a report of progress with all the recommendations contained within.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Fedicante?
Thank you, Your Honor. We had some conversation. Here's the brevity to the committee meeting. We had some conversation about this wellness package and how far the policy goes. And does it include football games? And does it include, because I just took a look at List A. I read this classroom and school celebration. I want to talk about that because it says you can have stuff from the A list. And on the A list, you could have the pirate booty bites, which I hope we're not selling, but I didn't see cupcakes. Okay? Now I saw some other stuff, some poppers and other kinds of high-salted kinds of material on the A list, which I think offended me more than a cupcake, okay? Then I took a look at healthy diet can include all foods, as long as snacks, desserts, side dishes, and entrees are appropriately portioned. Competitive foods should not take the place of a nutritionally balanced meal. It doesn't explain to me what a competitive food is, but I would think that would maybe some meat byproducts. So here's my concern. I'm not telling the Friends of Lowell High they can't serve hot dogs at a football game. If the curriculum subcommittee wants to take that responsibility, by all means, let Mr. Lang go with the no meat byproduct rule. And I have no problem with saying to the Friends of Lowell High, hey, get an all beef frank, okay? But how far down the list does this go? And only one birthday party per month. What if 2 kids have a birthday in the same month? I mean, and then I'm going to give this list to parents. It's 40 pages long, Your Honor. Okay? And some of the stuff, I've never heard of it before. So I guess my question to Mr. Lang is, how far down the chain does this policy encompass? Does it include the after-school activities that I'm referring to? It doesn't. Okay.
No. For right now, what we talked about is a phase-in approach. So for the next school year, because the Wellness Committee and the Health Curriculum Committee would be looking at this over the course of the year. For next year, what we were trying to target were things that were in our direct control, because we know there are going to be issues with your after-school sales and Friends of Lowell High and your football game hot dogs and things like that. So what we tried to actually target were during the school day activities for students. So what that would encompass is looking at our food service program menu and the offerings that they have to make sure that they're well-balanced and all of that. Primarily 3 other areas. A la carte sales, which are primarily at the high school, but there's a like a snack bar where you can go up and buy, say, a bag of chips, different things like that. Anything sold in that particular snack bar would have to be an A-list item. And that was an approved...
So the pirate booty bites, we were selling...
Well, I don't know if they would be a hot seller, but anything from that particular list could potentially be sold. And there were some, the big thing is instead of regular chips, baked chips, pretzels. There are a good number of items on there. But that would be what the a la carte sales would be. The other area particularly would be vending machines. So vending machines in schools available to students would have...
And I have no problem with that. But
Right.
you said something that piqued my interest. You said the phase in year 1. What happens in year 2? Do you have to then go to the Friends of Lowell High and tell them no hot dogs?
No, it's actually, the thing on this is it's open...
Because I'm not telling them that. Ever. Ever.
The school committee sets the policy.
Okay.
All right. It's up to you folks to figure out...
Thank you for somebody acknowledging that.
Yeah, it's up
Okay.
to... It depends on the school committee's preference as to how far you want to take this. Certainly, there needs to be a goodwill effort, and I think we're addressing that, particularly in year 1, by looking at some of the school day activities. But what they're stressing is that in future years, possibly looking at other activities, say your after-school things. If they're having a snack bar and they're selling you pizza and hot dogs, could they also sell a couple of items that are on, a list of approved foods? So not to take away the whole menu, but add some other options
And
for
I
students.
have no problem with adding some of the stuff from the A list. And I have no problem with that at all. But I think that we're talking about adults, plus kids, but adults who are going to a baseball game, a basketball game, a hockey game. They've come from work, they're coming to see their kid, they want to get a dog and a soda, and God forbid, a bag of chips and a cupcake. And they want to sit down and watch, and I have no problem with serving those types of food in an after-school activity. And I think that I have this concern about dictating to people everything that they can put in their mouth. And I don't think that's my job. Dictating to kids, maybe, because they're under our purview, but my concern is this reaching down into the after-school activities that adults and parents take part in. And so how can I ask the Friends of Lowell High to start selling, I don't know, some pirate booty bites instead of an all-beef hot dog, okay? Which, that's more scary to me than a cupcake. So I guess I need to be rest assured that the policy doesn't go that far down the list, and that it eliminates them from selling goods that helps them make a profit.
Okay. Mr. McHugh?
Yes, I think this is a draft. I think this is a start point, and I would agree with my colleague regarding, I think it would be my understanding, and I guess that's where with policy we got to get very clear, is I'm kind of looking at this as more geared towards the normal school day.
Okay.
What we're doing at lunch. What are we serving our students? What do they have available, whether we have vending machines or not, that we're not selling soda, we're not selling, the bad snacks,
Right.
I mean, or even in the a la carte line, that they fit within the nutrition guidelines. And I think I would look at it this way. I'm not looking, and I would agree with you, I'm not looking to stop an event at the football game to say that, we got the wellness police showing up. Mr. Lang will be out
Yes,
there with his
Mr.
hat.
Lang with his wellness badge, which is an
WP on
apple.
top, wellness police, and going through and saying, you can't sell that, you can't sell this, you can't sell that.
No dessert for you.
Those organizations are a vital part to the school system, and they do, a lot of, that's the way they raise their funds to give back to the kids and what we need and other things that they can't get through the normal budget. So, I'm hoping that through this policy that it is clear that this is probably geared towards the normal school day in the lunch menus that we're offering and offerings through the lunch day, not the cupcake sale after hours by some organization at a night function or something of that nature. It would be ideal in an ideal world to have healthy offerings, but you know what? I don't think it's our goal to stop that. So, I think as part of this draft that may we send it back to have them continue to look at it, to bring, something that's crafted in the sense that it's very clear, so we can have the Mr. Lang be the wellness police and go school to school and make sure they're following it. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to add that, as I could remind my colleagues, this whole initiative is based on federal legislation, and part of this legislation, this wellness policy, needs to be developed by committee, and the committee is members of the community. They make the recommendations, which we see in this draft, and I believe Mr. Lang is the chair of that committee, which has various community members, school administrative members. During our discussion at the curriculum subcommittee meeting, we were very clear that we had to look at what happens during the school day in terms of what access kids have to junk food, sodas, things like that. But we also looked at what happens in the classrooms. Many of the elementary classrooms they're structured that kids get rewarded by candy. And that would not be something that we would want to see happening in the fall. That would be part of the phase 1 piece, at least from my personal position on this, would be the idea that when the children are in school, the access they have to junk food, to that non-A-list stuff that we have control over, that we would really be limiting that. There wouldn't be candy given out as rewards for doing your homework or finishing the spelling test on time or any of those sorts of things. We would have to really start to communicate more effectively with teachers and also with parents about, what is considered good nutrition to bring to school. So it is a long-term kind of thing, but the cupcake piece, when we talked about what happens if you have, 3 or 4 birthdays in a month, and I know I'm one of those parents who sent in cupcakes, at the elementary level on my daughter's birthday. But we looked at, I think it was Holyoke, that had come up with this. They saw it as a compromise measure, that rather than having 4 or 5 cupcake parties in a month potentially, that if you had 2 kids who were born in the month of April in the same class, those birthday celebrations were combined into one monthly event where the kids could have cupcakes. Because like anyone here, I like my sweets, and I'm more of an ice cream fan than a cupcake fan. But we look at the obesity issue in this country, the number of children who are being pre-diagnosed diabetes, all these other health problems, and again, it ends up with the schools taking on a lion's share. It's not just about reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore. There's all these other things that it behooves us to be teaching. So, I look at this wellness policy as a good step for us. I definitely hear my colleagues' concerns about the line between, having control over what children are exposed to in terms of food during the day, and then looking at after-school events and fundraisers and things like that. And I just want to remind you that we are getting these recommendations from this wellness committee that's part of this law, and ultimately we will decide the policy. But I thought this was a very good first start to say up front, beginning in September, there's going to be, much less junk food in the schools during the school day. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
I just wanted to ask one quick question. I know that as we discuss this, we're talking about, a policy that certainly at the beginning stages. Am I right as I read this that this applies to anything going on as I'm reading Lowell Public Schools or on school grounds, except for breakfast and lunch? Is breakfast and lunch, I'm hoping, held to higher standards than these, or
Yeah, they have a different set of qualifications
are
through
they
the
more
USDA.
strident, or?
I think they're more stringent, and they talk about different kinds of grains and things like that that
Okay.
have to be in meals. So it's a different set of regulations that they have to adhere to for the breakfast and the lunch program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Leary?
Real quickly regarding the Wellness Committee, I guess the part the committee also looked at regarding like the Friends of Lowell High, what have you, if any issues were to come after school, we would really grow the committee, I think was the, grow the committee. We would add folks like the Friends of Lowell High and other groups onto the committee to have a voice should that ever go in that direction. So I agree with my colleague 100% that, we should have hot dogs at football games. I really want to touch base real quickly on professional development that the superintendent pointed out in the meeting regarding, I guess, the clear evidence of teachers having success, or at least the view participation in professional development is working. are we realizing this in MCAS scores? Are we realizing this in test scores in our quarterly reports? Is that showing up in tangible numbers right now, or is that something that we're going to measure in the future? I mean, real credible, like, we have our quarterly exams in the high school. Are we showing dramatic improvement because of our professional development?
Well, an example, it's somewhat hard to attribute change to a single cause because we have multiple things going on. But if you take an example of the 8th grade, that our 8th graders that have taken the connected math, which is a new program for which there's been substantial professional development support for teachers, along with the algebra seminar, are now scoring as high as the freshmen who are in honors algebra, is a significant indicator that the quality of curriculum and instruction for the 8th grade youngsters is rising. So we can attribute at least some of that to the professional development. Okay, it's hard to separate out the quality of the new materials that teachers are working with from the professional development.
And that's positive, and I think that's good. And I think, what about our people who are not at that level? How are we showing improvement for, the younger folks at the lower levels?
I can give an example that in 3 of our schools that have had significant professional development in elementary schools, in balanced literacy with a very systematic intervention model for at-risk readers who are somewhat at risk or very at risk. 2 of our 3 schools that went through that had among the highest increases in the state, the percentage of students who achieve benchmark reading in the primary grades. So that's an example, again, of a mix of quality materials and the professional development to support that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Superintendent.
Mr. Leahy.
Very slowly. I had 2 questions on professional development and the Read 180 program, through you to Superintendent. My question with the professional development and on what I read in the report, they talk about some questions asked by Ms. Doherty about literacy and writing in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. So I guess my view would be that I don't think we do enough writing, and I would ask you to respond how the professional development is going to help that or increase it if we're going to see that in the school in all grades. I mean, my children are young, but my oldest is in the 3rd grade. I don't think she does enough writing as it is. I've got nieces and nephews in the high school. I don't think they had enough to write. So is this going to interact with that, or could you elaborate a little bit more?
Let me talk about two different things that are going on. One is at the elementary level, with the focus that we've had over the last several years in developing the balanced literacy approach, where teachers have developed their skills to do the teacher-guided reading, small groups, while all the youngsters are reading at their independent level, identifying the leveled readers that are just challenging enough for students so that they're engaging but not impossible for them to do, so that they can do that reading independently and apply the strategies that they've learned from the small group instruction that they've had that's targeted specifically to them. Those 2 components, plus the making meaning of the teaching of comprehension strategies, have consumed a lot of the time and energy of teachers of developing that, and we've not had across the district a significant focus on writing over the last several years. We had that earlier, but the last 4 or 5 years we've been really focusing on the literacy, and then of course the same teachers are teaching mathematics. So they've also been working very hard to implement a new mathematics program. Many of the schools will be using the updated materials published by Scott Forsman next year. One of the reasons we chose those materials are that they integrate expanded writing into the materials in a much stronger way than the old Scott Forsman program did. So we anticipate teachers having much stronger resources to use to expand both the amount of writing as well as the kinds of writing that students do. So we think that we're going to be supporting teachers with much more effective materials at elementary. At the middle school level, the professional development about writing in the last 2 years has focused on a method you may have heard teachers talk about it as the John Collins approach. That happens to be the professional who developed an approach to writing a number of years ago. that really supports writing across all the subject areas. And all the teachers use some common approaches about first draft writing is type 1 writing, brainstorming is type 1 writing, all the way up to, you might have heard, type 5 writing, which is finished, published writing. And youngsters write at different levels. There's a similar approach to identifying the areas of improvement that they should focus on. So you may have heard teachers or youngsters talk about my FCAs, my focused correction areas for this particular assignment. And the particular strength of that program and the professional development associated with it is it goes across the curriculum. So now we're seeing more writing going on, for example, even in physical education and health classes at the middle school level, as well as in math classes, science classes, in the allied arts. So we are seeing in the schools an increase in the amount of writing, particularly at the middle school level already, and keeping of portfolios, following progress over time so that youngsters can see their progress, so can their future teachers. So I think that those are two areas that professional development, the combination of professional development and putting better, more effective teaching materials in the hands of teachers, you will see an increasing difference over time. Okay. In the case of at the high school level, the work that's being done on the Common Course quarterly examinations is building in the teachers of U.S. History 1 across the whole high school collaborate on designing an assessment that involves writing that all the students are doing, and it's a way to pay greater attention to writing in the subject areas beyond English.
Okay. I would hope next year, I mean, I really think we need to push this with our teachers and make sure that we are having the kids write more than they have been. My other comment was with the Read 180 program. I was glad to see that. And I have been over to the Freshman Academy, and I've talked with Kathy Mee, and I think she's doing a great job with this. I'm glad to see the funding came through. Could you keep us updated over the summer on this to make sure, it's going to be, it is going to be done next year, right? No matter what happens with the budget, we'll find the money for this, or is this pending?
It's in the budget right now.
Right, but I would hope that no matter what happens with the budget, I would hope we'd get support from my colleagues that, this needs to be implemented at the high school. We need to find the money for this somewhere, depending on it. And I think it's probably one of the better alternatives we have for the high school. I just did have one question on the report we got from the high school. On the last paragraph, it said something about supporting the 9th and 10th grade teachers.
I think it's, if I can, Mr. Leahy, during next year, we'll be implementing for grade 9, but we'll also be devising a plan to work with the English teachers, the cluster English teachers in grade 9, and the teachers of the Essentials of English at the sophomore level, so that they will be prepared to offer an intensive reading program for those sophomores the following year who need it.
Okay.
And so rather than jumping in next fall with something for 9th and 10th that we're not really ready to do, we'll start with 9th grade, we'll learn from that, and we'll be looking and doing the planning ahead so that sophomores the next year, we would have an effective program for those that still need it.
Okay, and then I would imagine we're going to go backwards with this also, right? Because once we get a handle on it at the high school, we are addressing the needs at the elementary and middle, but maybe we should be looking to fall backwards with it to catch more students that are coming up, and hopefully with the new program in the elementary, we're going to, really close the gap on this problem.
Right.
Squeeze it out in a way. So.
Well, this model of having a specific plan for systematic intervention for youngsters who are at risk, who are struggling readers, either very seriously struggling or somewhat struggling and not yet at benchmark, is really part of the materials we're getting at the elementary level. And also at the middle school level, so that this is really a central focus for us, is that systematic intervention. So it's not enough to have the literacy block of time. We have to actually add time to make sure that there is additional time for youngsters who are struggling to read. And it has to start at the youngest grade.
Sure. I mean, I feel that this is we've seen the cuts that we've made over the years with the reading specialists, and I think this is the result of it, and this is what we're facing right now, and this is the problem that we have to deal with. So, I think we should be looking to have reading specialists, if not one or two, in all schools. I know we had to cut them out over the past years, and especially this year. There's some elementary schools without them. But this is a real problem that's facing us right now. And we seriously need to take a good hard look at this. And, do we need to sit down and adjust our budget or do something, but bite the bullet and have a reading specialist in each elementary school? So I think this is a serious problem for us that we need to address. Thank you.
Mr. Leary.
Quickly, Mayor, through you to the superintendent, do we have our Title I, do we know what the cuts actually are right now? I know we were anticipating a 10% cut, and that was going to be like around 1.9 million. Is that etched in stone right now? Is it greater than 10%?
I understand that we're going to get the next report from the Department of Ed on Friday. And so we hope to have a clear idea of whether our estimate was, how good our estimate was. Good in a relative term here. How accurate our estimate was.
Mr. McHugh?
Thank you. I just have a couple questions on the Terra Nova testing, and the proposal is to eliminate this altogether. And I think just piggybacking on Mr. Leahy talked about reading, and I know this was put in as a way to get a national test to provide assessments for all our students. And I know in the report it did talk, I read the report that was attached, it talked about assessments that are being used. Are these district-wide assessments? I guess my first concern is, as the new curriculum person steps in for you, Mr. Rourke, how are we going to get reports to show what the kids are doing in districts? I kind of look at it as an assessment. Is it a classroom assessment that the teachers be able to utilize to identify the needs of the student, which is great, but how is that data going to then be extracted back through the central office to provide reports to show that we are doing everything possible to address the reading? And I just don't want to see something that we've discussed long and hard and put in place in a matter of now 4 or 5 years disappear because it appears it's no longer needed, and then 2 years from now when we ask them questions we don't have the data to back up our decision-making process. So I'm not against eliminating it, but I just want to make sure that it's well thought out and that we'll be able to still get information on where our students are when we ask for it, and that we have that data pulled back. So maybe you could explain that part of it.
Briefly, the Scholastic Reading Inventory will provide the national norms that Ms. Martin alluded to earlier. So therefore, the committee will get the national norms that has received in the past from Terra Nova through the SRI. We also took a critical look as far as the issue relating the MCAS. The MCAS will be provided now for all students in grades 3 through 8 in the area of reading and in mathematics. So therefore, the item analysis data that we'll be receiving from the MCAS serves the Mayor asked me a question earlier as far as the funding for the NCLBA, so that's the requirement of the state, so we're meeting that. The Terra Nova is not aligned any longer with the curriculum frameworks nor with the investigations to mathematics programs as well as the balanced literacy. So to utilize a tool to assess students to help guide instruction is no longer the practical use of the Terra Nova. The increased amount of testing that we're having in the MELO and the MEPA, the increased amount of testing that we're doing in the MCAS has taken a significant time away from classroom instruction. So we believe that the formative assessments that will be provided through the SRI, which will give you national norms, as well as the implementation at the lower grade level of the Galileo, will provide much more meaningful and purposeful data for teachers to use to provide the district as well as the school committee with appropriate information. So Ms. Franco will be able to provide those reports for you in the future.
So just to understand it correctly, so every year a child's going to be, from grades 3 on, will be getting a MCAS in reading and in math, and then we're going to have the SRI, which is the reading, every year. So we'll have 2 reading indicators. And on the SRI, the only thing I don't like about the MCAS, you take it in the spring, you don't get the results till November. I mean, I kind of think, to me, that's just craziness that you are into the next grade. When is the SRI given, and when will do they get those
We
results?
administer the
that in early
SRI
fall?
3 times during the course of the year, the beginning, midpoint, and at the end of the year. It's also a test that's, when we did the analysis and we provided a report earlier in this academic year, the data that we received from the SRI gave us a better predictor in a correlation of the MCAS than the Terra Nova did. So we did do that analysis. So I think I know the teachers appreciate the fact that they use an assessment that's more productive and meaningful, and I think the Terra Nova has waned in that regard.
No, and I guess I would agree with you on that. I think it is important to have the teachers with assessments that they can look at quickly and make quick adjustments and not say, well, I worked all year with this student, they take an exam as we get into the spring, and then next year, the next grade teacher receives it and saying, okay, what am I doing with this data? And it's already a quarter of the way into the school year. So I guess that's my, but I think if this is aligned that way, I think that's probably a better tool than the MCAS because it'll give the quicker results to the classroom teacher. But I just want to make sure all that data is definitely getting pulled back through the central office because I know that will be it's a very useful tool when using the data to look at where we're going with our reading program. Okay, thank you.
Okay. On this part of the report concerning the elimination of Terra Nova, I think we should have a separate roll call on that. Motion to adopt the report of the subcommittee to eliminate this testing by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leahy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Larry.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
I'm going to have to go yes, only because Ted Rorak said so. No, I actually, I'm a little nervous, but I'm going to vote yes, and I just hope we're not making a hesitant remark, but I'm assured that SRI will be the answer. Thank you.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay. Motion to accept the balance of the report as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The balance of the report is approved as a report of progress. The next subcommittee report is on the Safety Subcommittee meeting of June 12th by Ms. Fattacante. Ms. Fattacante.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very short, sweet, straight to the point. We had a demonstration from a young woman who came from the State Department of Transportation and outlined for us a program that the Lowell School Department could enter into, which would possibly get us some money. Now, when we pressed her about the funding, she indicated that the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has received funding for 2 years in a row, but yet has not devised a mechanism for dispersing any of the money. There are 30 communities that are currently in line ahead of us, and so here's what the outcome was of the meeting. I suggested that the members of the Transportation Subcommittee meet to discuss whether or not we want the Lowell School Department to enter into this program with the Department of Transportation. There are some benefits to it. They will come and run some programs for us, and it's but there are clearly some major issues, and one of them is a safe walk to school program. And we said to this young woman, that would be great if we had sidewalks. We'd love to encourage children to walk to school, but part of the reason we're having these discussions to begin with is that the walk to school for some kids is very dangerous. And she said, look, I'm not from Lowell, I have no idea what your issues and your concerns are. So I think that we really need to, and we also found out from her that we don't have to adopt it as a district. Separate schools could adopt the package, preferably schools that had sidewalks in the neighborhood, and we could run these programs at these schools. Now, simply one particular school adopt or becoming part of the program gets our foot in the door to get some of this money. And clearly that is the pot of gold at the end of this rainbow. So I see on the agenda that we have a Transportation Subcommittee meeting on the 21st. Since the members of Transportation and Safety are one and the same, we'll be addressing it at that meeting and then making a full recommendation to the school committee. Thank you.
Okay, motion to adopt the report as a report of progress by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Doherty.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The report is adopted as a report of progress. Final subcommittee report is the subcommittee on Lowell High School meeting on June 12th. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. We had, the Lowell High School Subcommittee did meet on June 12th. The subcommittee members present included myself, Ms. Fattacante, and Mr. Leary. Other school committee members present included Ms. Martin. The administrators present were the Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Rorak, Assistant Superintendent Jean Franco, Lowell High Headmaster Bill Samaras, Lowell High School Curriculum Director Dr. Wendy Jack, and Lowell High Student Support Services Coordinator Norma Audi. We also had present a number of teachers and administrators who have been involved in the Adult Ed Alternative Diploma Program. And that would include Fred Abbasi, the Lowell High School Adult Education Director, Catherine Nardoni, Lowell High School Health Bioscience Teacher, Denise O'Connor, Lowell High School Health Bioscience Teacher, Mr. Dirk Nolder, UTEC Diploma School Coordinator, Sue Smith, Lowell Public Schools District Support Specialist, Greg Cruteau, UTEC Executive Director, Robert McCarthy, Lowell High School Evaluation Team Chairperson, Barbara Hodgson, Lowell High School History ELL Teacher, Stephen Coleman, Lowell High School Student Support Service Specialist, Phil Camo, Lowell High School History Teacher, Mr. Frank Hoare, Lowell High School English Teacher, and Ms. Peters, Lowell High School Math Teacher. So we had quite a group. There were only three issues on the agenda, and I'll go through them very quickly. The first one was the graduation report, where we were told that 677 seniors graduated from Lowell High School. 94% of those seniors received a diploma, which means they adequately passed MCAS. What I thought was interesting about that is that that puts Lowell above the norm for urban schools. That when we look at our sister urban schools, we do better than average in terms of our percentage of students who are successful with MCAS. However, we're 2 percentage points shy from the statewide average for success, which is 96%. So, of course, we still have a better job in that area to do. That's, I guess, all. We do have 43 students who did not receive their diploma because they have not met all the requirements. Those students will be attending summer school, perhaps taking MCAS again, different actions for those students. So that was an overview of the graduation report, which we could vote to accept all these reported progress at the end. The second report was based on a motion by my colleague, Mr. Leahy, asking for a report on guidance counselors at the high school, which we got a report that does a breakdown. We've got 4 guidance counselors at the Freshman Academy. 8 guidance counselors are assigned to the 4 house offices. That's 2 each. And then we have 2 counselors who serve as college relations career counselors. And Ms. Audi, who prepared this report, gave us an extensive list of what those college guidance counselors are doing as we work to provide more support for students to get into college. Many of our students may be the first members of their family to complete a high school degree, never mind look at college. And as many people know, the college application process and financial aid is very lengthy and complicated, so we get a list of how those guidance counselors work to support more of our students getting into college. One of the facts that jumped out to me were they helped to process more than 3,000 scholarships applications in preparation for scholarship committee review. I mean, that's a lot of scholarships they're helping our students to put together. They also tend to administer the AP exams and attend AP professional development workshops. I guess I would just say, unless there are specific comments or questions, that this is just an overview of the report. I'd leave that to Mr. Leahy if you had thoughts.
Sure, I had a question, thank you. The number of graduates this year, 667, is that what you reported?
Yes.
Through you, too. Okay. That just seems very low to me.
Yes, actually, thank you for reminding me of that. I had a motion, which is not in the minutes, I just realized, where we asked the superintendent to provide us with information on what happened to the rest of those students. How does that dropout rate compare with previous years? Because obviously we had more than 677 students who entered as freshmen.
Yeah, usually it's more like 1,200. so
Right, we
that's-
asked for a report that would kind of break down, give us some more information about the rest of those students, and that's not in the minutes, I apologize, I just realized that. But we are going to be getting that information, a more inclusive information about the data on the high school students.
Okay. And then one other question. Did I'm not sure if I got that report in my packet or not, but yeah. How did they feel the college guidance counselors were working out? The getting to the, is there enough to, the visits from juniors, are there enough kids getting in there, getting the help that they need, or is it something we need to look at for one more, or?
I would have to relay that back to the superintendent, because we didn't actually, they never brought up the issue that they needed more guidance counselors to do career and college placement.
It was not discussed in preparing this report. The headmaster, in bringing forward his budget needs for next year, did not, in the course of the spring, did not identify needing additional guidance counselors. There were other higher priority needs which he brought forward, and you saw them reflected in the budget request that I made. That doesn't mean that the high school wouldn't love to have more guidance counselors, but in terms of the priority needs, it didn't rise to the top.
I just want to make sure that, I know I've spoken to you on this about personal issues that I've encountered, and I just want to make sure that two college guidance counselors are a lot for 600, 700 students. So I just want to make sure, was a discussion of like a backup plan, or if they can't get to the kids, what happens with that? So I didn't know, I thought maybe that should have been discussed to the chair, or no?
I would just say that when we looked at the counselor issue, because each house has two guidance counselors, except for the freshman academy, which has 4. My understanding was those guidance counselors were taking a lot of the day-to-day scheduling load off of for students in those 4 houses, spread those 2 on each house. And then the 2 college guidance counselors were working primarily with juniors and seniors, juniors who have to take the testing to prepare for the next year's, and seniors with the actual college applications and things like that. I mean, could we be doing more? Absolutely. But I didn't get the sense that, I mean, it's been relatively new that we've had 2 guidance counselors focused on college. I mean, my understanding, it's been only, we just had 1 first, and then we moved to 2. And I think part of if you look at the report, I'm sorry you didn't get in your packet, part of what they were doing was justifying, I think, what those 2 guidance counselors are doing. So there really wasn't any discussion of, is it enough? Are the kids falling through the cracks? And certainly, those concerns need to be brought forward, but it was not something that happened at that meeting. We were really looking at, we've got these 2, the school committee has made a commitment to 2 career college guidance counselors, and this is what they're doing for the school. And that's why you'll see these bullets, a list of activities between college fairs, helping kids with financial aid forms, 3,000 scholarship applications. I mean, it really, from my perspective, it was more justifying, this is the work they're doing. I wasn't aware that there are kids whose needs are not being met. Okay. And certainly that would be something to look at.
Well, we can discuss that further, high school meetings, and take a look at it.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to, you have more?
One more, sorry. The last item on the agenda was as I mentioned in the beginning, the Adult Ed Alternative Diploma Program, which that committee of people that I listed, starting with Fred Abbasi, who's the Adult Ed Director, they provided the subcommittee with a report of the curriculum, their plans. This is all in a draft stage still. Their plans for how they would make this alternative diploma program as demanding and as much of a learning experience for those students who participate in it as our students get at the high school. That in order to get a diploma from Lowell High, you have to meet, these very, I guess regimented by the state, 990 hours a year of instruction, just like our students at the high school have to have. And they've segmented the curriculum, although they want to keep it challenging, they've segmented it into groups so that students have to achieve an 80% or above to have successfully completed one segment, whether it's a math portion or an English portion. And so we had a great deal of discussion around that curriculum, and I personally felt that they had really done a lot of work in that area and given it a lot of thought. A couple of concerns that came out at the subcommittee meeting were the issue of attendance and the code of conduct, and it was made very clear by the school committee representatives who were there, and I think that they heard those concerns, that all students in this alternative diploma program would adhere to Lowell High School Code of Conduct issues, that our policies about attendance, all these things would be parlayed into this new program. We did, however, get the sense that more work needed to be done on some of these areas of concern. So I think the plan is they want to perhaps begin the school as early as November in 2006, because they will be on a different schedule. They don't have to start when we start, the last week in August. And the motion was to recommend to the school committee as a whole that we accept the report as a report of progress, and that we would schedule a meeting in July to continue further discussion and review some of these policies and other areas not related to curriculum that really, were areas of concern that needed to be hammered out. I don't know if anybody else on the committee would like to.
Mr. Leahy.
I just have one comment relating to the adult ed. We attended the adult ed graduation last week, and Fred Abbasi does a great job. And those students that graduate, I mean, what a great group of people they are, and very appreciative to get their diplomas. And a minor housekeeping issue, I have raised it with the superintendent and with Mr. Lang, but I think when we have events at the high school like that, we really need to make sure that the grounds outside are kept clean. I didn't find it very clean, and I thought it was kind of embarrassing for us at a graduation ceremony. So in the future, I hope we address that. Thank you.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Leahy's comment reminded me of something about that group, this alternative degree program. It's a very unique opportunity for Lowell schools, because we have this partnership with somebody like Mr. Abbasi, who has a great reputation across the state. People look toward Lowell Adult Education as a model program. I think it's the largest in the region as well. Somebody like Mr. Abbasi working with the headmaster at the high school and a group of really committed teachers. I mean, that's why I made the time to list them. These teachers came out to a subcommittee meeting, and they've obviously done a lot of work in planning for this curriculum. They will be the teachers at this alternative diploma program. Partnering with UTEC, which has been an organization that's worked with our youth for years now. And I think it's a really unique opportunity for the schools to try to provide another option for our students who are not able to be successful in the traditional high school format. I guess the motion is to accept it as a report of progress.
Okay. Motion to adopt the report as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Leary. Mr. Leary.
Just real quickly, to the superintendent, do we have a status on the grants to pay for this UTEC issue? I know that came up in the middle of the subcommittee.
I expect to have more information by the end of next week. We're waiting to hear on one particular grant application.
He did. Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is adopted as a report of progress. On to reports of the superintendent. First item, indicators of safe and respectful schools. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, the committee has a report that I've prepared in response to a motion from committee member Doherty. to identify indicators that can help the school committee see what progress is being made to achieve a safe and respectful environment in each school. And so you have a set of recommendations for me, indicators. One set of indicators are the perceptions of students and staff, and they would be gathered annually through a survey. The second would be the incidence of disruptive and/or dangerous behavior, and that would be a semi-annual collection of information that's outlined here. And then a third part would be the principals semi-annually analyzing that data and identifying the action plan that flows from that, that would focus particularly in two areas. One, the prevention efforts in the school, and then the intervention efforts in the school. And I think that taken together, looking at perceptions, hard data, and action plans, and the use of that data, I think that we'll be able to have a helpful way of looking at progress being made in each of the schools toward the very high level of safety and respectfulness that we aspire to. So I'm hopeful that this, if it meets with the school committee approval, we'll move forward to implement this next year.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes, I'd like to start by thanking the superintendent, because this has been an issue that has been real concern for me, and I look forward to reading this report, because I think it's a difficult thing. How do you determine that you have a safe and respectful climate at every school? You can't just look at, well, we suspended this number of kids, because what's that going to tell you? So I think this is a very thoughtful approach to look at student and staff perceptions, look at actual hard data, number of incidents, and then the third, and I think really important piece, is the action plans, the interventions, the consequences, which we were talking about earlier tonight, to look for some consistency in consequences as we start to determine, what programs are successful, what schools are able to maintain a high level of safety and respectful climate. What are the action plans that really, lead to the best results? So I would like to refer this to the discipline subcommittee for further discussion as we begin to, I guess, even maybe that joint subcommittee, discipline and safety, as we begin to look at our policies district-wide to incorporate this plan's approach. But I think it's a great step. I really do. I was very happy to see it. Thank you.
Okay, motion to refer this matter to the
Motion to refer, Your Honor.
Discipline and Safety Subcommittees by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed?
And Your Honor,
Yes.
I understand that Mr. Lang is keeping tabs on the girls' softball. Could you please report?
Yes, because I have a great interest in this.
Yes.
The notes have been passed over. As of 9:07, they had completed 7 complete innings. There's no score. They're going into extra innings.
Okay. Just keeping tabs for the listeners, for the viewers.
We could speed up some of these reports and maybe, and maybe get to the game for the extra innings,
I was going to say.
Did John hear
what?
that?
You've only been here 6 months, and you're running a pretty long meeting here now, okay?
Just food for
It's on the
thought.
right side of the room.
Okay. Next item, Madam Superintendent.
Thickest report, shortest verbal report. The 5-year capital plan, I want to thank Assistant Superintendent Lang and his staff, who worked very closely with principals over many months to identify the full range of capital needs and replacement, equipment replacement and capital needs at each school. So the first part of this draft plan is a listing by school location and the prioritizing of each principal. Of course, as one would expect, everybody wants it in the first year, so that there's a next step that comes, which will be Mr. Lang and his staff working to spread this out over a 5-year period and to be a little bit more sort of tighter with how much can be done in the first, second, third year, and push more of this evenly spread out over 5 years. But it gives you certainly a picture of the range and depth and scope of the needs in the schools. The second section is lists by year, which means level of priority, the description as they've been prioritized by principals. The third section is the information on the school building authority, all the information that is now for the new school building project. The next tab is the whole E-rate process, which is the core resource that we use to sustain and upgrade our technology infrastructure, so that you can see the report for that. The last two sections are the work that needs to be done on our roofs, which is substantial, and a placeholder there for a report that we'll be getting from a consultant on all of the HVAC needs across our buildings, which, the committee knows have been some major issues. So I would hope that the committee might refer this to the facility subcommittee for further review, and our hope would be that when the city moves ahead to look at bonding next fall for the longer-term projects, that key priorities from our five-year plan will be built into that plan for bonding.
You're on a motion to refer this to the facility subcommittee?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? The matter is referred to the facility subcommittee. The next item is a report on guidance counselors at Lowell High School.
You have just accepted that report from that earlier.
Okay, so no need for further action on that. The next item is the quarterly report on motions.
Yes, the first page in green, the front and back, is the current status of school committee motions. Attached to it is the last report you received that was requested at the last time, that we always include the report from an earlier time.
Motion to accept this report of progress, Your Honor.
Second by Ms. Martin. Ms. Doherty?
Yes, I had a request. I had a motion in January regarding special education services. And I know it's a lengthy motion, I'm not going to read it again, but I believe that most of that data should be in the hands of special education. And I would ask for that report in July instead
It's
of
scheduled.
August.
It's being scheduled. Actually, we've just confirmed this week that we should be able to have that report, as well as the information that was identified on today's motion by Mr. Leary, that we're shooting for the July 17th meeting.
Okay, before that, so we'd have a subcommittee meeting before our next full committee meeting in July?
We'll have to see. That may be too tight, but we'll
Okay.
get something to you in July.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Martin?
Thank you. If I could just quickly, number 4, this personnel procedures issue, if we could, I know that since bringing on our council, things have been, we've been throwing quite a bit at them, and with negotiations and everything else going on. But if we could, in time for our next meeting, have a target date. I mean, I would like to have a report out on this no later than, I would say, our August meeting, September at the very latest. So if we could just throw those dates by Mr. Hall, Attorney Hall, and so he's aware that we'll be looking for that information. Thank you.
I also, through you, Your Honor, want to point out that our colleague who is here tonight, Mr. Mendonça, actually has a motion on this list that he put on in 2004 that has yet to come to fruition.
So we can cross that one off the list, right?
No. Motion to accept this as a report of progress.
Okay.
It's the second page, and it's 11704, Mendonça, LHS Academies, under consideration as part of the 2005-2006 goals. So we are working on it, Mr. Mendonça, for Lowell High School subcommittee meeting in February. We should actually be, with Ms. Doherty's motion tonight, we should actually be coming to some closure on this.
Okay. All right. Motion to adopt this report as a report of progress by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. The next item is on the proposal for Kirk Street. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, you have a report that I prepared based on a conversation our staff had with Ann Barton at the Department of Planning and Development as to the feasibility of closing Kirk Street. And as you can see, she's not at this point prepared to make that recommendation, given the disruption that at least she sees at this point that would be caused by that. She's certainly, I know, willing to, talk about it more if need be, but this was her assessment of the problems that would come from it.
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. I read her report, and I did have a conversation with Ms. Barton, Ms. Barton today. Unfortunately, she answered, the communication that we gave to her was, she thought we wanted the whole street closed, but that wasn't part of my motion. So she gave a great report, but it was on the wrong question. But through conversation with her, she feels that even if we did close the second half of the street, that it still would be, detrimental to some of the businesses around the area. But I was assured by the freshman academy that I guess they are out there at certain times of the day, making sure that the kids cross safely. It was a safety issue, so if we can't if we can't close one half of the street, then we'll just have to make sure that the crosswalks at the end of the street are properly painted and the kids learn to use them, I guess, so, thank you.
Okay. Motion to accept the report as a report of progress
Progress,
by
Your Honor.
Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is adopted. Next is the list of eligible teachers. Do you have anything to add to that, Madam Superintendent?
No.
Motion to accept as a report of progress, Your Honor.
Motion to accept by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is approved. And the final superintendent report is the personnel report.
And nothing to add.
Your Honor, we did receive the personnel report. It's amazing to see how many people are retiring, the years of service they're putting in. It's pretty scary. When I talk to Sue Duggan, our assistant superintendent of personnel, she tells me that we're going to need to hire 100 teachers for the next to fill these positions. The collective knowledge, as you indicated earlier, the collective knowledge is not replaceable. Motion to accept the report and place it on file, Your Honor.
So moved by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That matter is approved. We have 4 separate requests for conventions and conferences. One group of 4 teachers to go to the Advanced Placement Initiative. Those expenses are paid by the Advanced Placement Initiative grant. We have 2 requests to go to the CSR Principals Retreat. Those costs are paid by the CSR grant. We have a request for 16 staff personnel to go to the Expanding Reach Project Seminar. Those expenses are paid by the Reach Project. And we have a request for 4 people to attend a trip in Madrid, Spain during next year's February vacation. They are paying their own costs, and all of these requests come during either the summer or school vacation, so there is no substitute teaching needed for any of them.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Fattacante. Ms. Martin.
Just one quick question on this number 4. I'm assuming this is part of a school-sponsored group?
The trip to Spain.
Yeah. Language club or international something?
I believe so, but I'd have to double check.
Well, we certainly have plenty of time, so if...
Yes.
You want to delay?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
might
you
as
know
well
what?
delay it.
I would think it's a foreign language,
Let's just be
language.
clear.
Well, I kind of said that.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'm telling you, I know.
I believe it is. I just don't know which
I didn't think it was the
organization at high
algebra
school.
club going to...
So is
right.
the question you'd like to know which high school organization?
If it's a Spanish club, or if it is an international language club, or just what the
Fine.
official school-sponsored activity is.
C.
So the motion is amended to approve the first 3 items and delay action on the 4th item until the next meeting as amended. So moved by Ms. Fattacante, seconded by Ms. Doherty.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Miss Doherty,
Yes.
Miss Fattacante.
Yes?
Mr. Leahy,
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay, and we have, I think the final item is 2 requests. one by the Lowell School Administrators Association to donate sick leave days to Joanne Cuddy of the Varnum School, 52 days, and Judith Flood of the Bartlett School, 35 days, and a request by the United Teachers of Lowell to donate sick days to Sarah Flynn Donovan at the Bartlett, 12 days, and Rebecca Rule of the Pawtucket Memorial, 2 days.
Move approval.
Motion to approve by Ms. Faticante, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call, please.
Mr. Larry,
Yes.
Ms. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. McHugh.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Faticante.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Should have plenty of time to get out there for the 11th inning. Meeting stands adjourned.